Mobility band workout plan.
Stage 1.5, the advanced version of stage 1. It's gonna be full body.
And we're getting started now with Good Mornings supersetted with deadlifts. Yeah.
Starting out with the good mornings, and this is going to be a posterior change dominant exercise. It's a little bit more of an isolation exercise because you're really only focusing on the flexion and extension of the hip joint, and this is really going to target the hamstrings and the glutes, and it's used to kind of pre-exhaust the muscles before you get to the compound movement, which is going to be the deadlift. So first, the good mornings. After you get the good mornings done, then you're going to be moving on to the deadlifts, and you're just kind of wrapping the band around the base of your neck here and stepping on the band just about hip width apart or so, and toes pointed straight. You're gonna stand up here, and this is where you're gonna be flexing in the hips, slight bend in the knees, get that nice stretch in the hamstrings, and then extend the hips and get a good squeeze in your glutes at that top position. So it's very similar to kind of like an RDL, like if you had dumbbells in your hands, you'd be doing here, but of course now it's changing it just a little bit because you don't have to hold anything, and it's really gonna be focusing on the lower back, glutes, and hamstrings. Oh, you don't wanna go too heavy with these. It's really trying to get in touch with the muscles, get a nice stretch, and get a good squeeze at the top. You kind of wanna bow forward like you're saying good morning in a very proper way. You don't wanna overextend in the top position either. You really wanna just get that stretch and kind of get that full extended position and squeeze the glutes at the top here. And that's when you know it's working. Ooh, oh yeah. Good mornings are done. Now it's time to move on to the deadlifts. This is another exercise that works on the extension and flexion of the hips, but now you're gonna be involving a little bit of the extension and flexion of the knees as well. And you're gonna be holding the band, so you're gonna get a little involvement in the lats. Oh, that posterior chain. Same thing, you're gonna bow forward, but you're gonna kind of dip down a little bit at the same time, and then you're gonna get full extension here and squeeze the top. Oh, yeah. Starting with more of an isolation exercise, kind of that pre-exhaustion, is really gonna get you in touch with those muscles that you're trying to target. It is really working towards that mind-muscle connection. So when you jump on something like the deadlifts, even though this band is actually lighter, you really do feel that burn in the muscles because one, they've already been worked with the first exercise, and two, you really have that connection to them so you can really feel them working and make them burn a little bit more.
And there's nothing wrong when trying these exercises out for the first time, especially if you're not really acquainted with bands, to go ahead and pick a gauge that's a little bit lighter. As you can see here, we have a wide variety, 5 different sizes ranging from very small to extra large. We've got the 3rd gauge up, and like Brandon was saying, by the end of the superset, it still feels pretty good. So you don't want to get one that's too big, puts a little too much strain on the neck, or maybe makes you feel a little bit uncomfortable. Grab a little lighter one, feel it out, and then if it feels right, go ahead and move up. You may notice we have this live on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch back here. We're not actually live at the moment, as you could probably tell, but every Saturday morning we are. So if you want to join us for a high intensity interval cardio training routine, we're going to be doing full body. You can see the sign right here. It changes every week or so. Saturday mornings, 9 a.m. Pacific. Join me and Brandon. Get a killer bodyweight workout. Yeah. On to some back, and we're going to be doing some single arm, straight arm pull downs. Now this is really gonna help isolate the lats. It's also gonna work a little bit in the serratus anterior and also the pectoralis there. And you're really focusing on the shoulder extension, bringing it here. And as you can see, we just got it tied up above us, and we're just gonna be getting on our knees. And much like you would do with a normal straight arm pull down, this is just gonna be unilateral. So you're only doing one arm at a time. And you're really focusing on getting that nice strict form. Arm straight, you can have a slight bend in the elbow to help stabilize the arm, but really focus on that good stretch at that top position, nice deep breath. And as you extend your shoulder back, exhale. Feel that nice stretch in the lat, and then squeeze the bottom there. So again, we're kind of using this a little bit more of a pre-exhaustion before moving on to a compound exercise, this being in isolation because you're only utilizing the shoulder joint through the flexion and extension. And this is again to really help not only fatigue the muscle a little bit before moving on to the compound, but also really getting in contact and kind of getting that nice mind-muscle connection with the muscle that you're trying to target and focus on. And if you feel this in your tricep, don't worry, the tricep is actually gonna be helping with shoulder extension, so there might be a little burn in there.
Now, we're moving on to the compound, which is gonna be the pull downs here. As you can tell, we have the big band. We have the buff dude band here. And these ones are gonna be primarily focusing on the lats, but of course the biceps are gonna be a secondary muscle group, as well as the posterior deltoids, but the focus is of course on the lats. Lats being a big muscle, they can handle a lot of weight, so boom, that's why we're using this big band. Working on elbow flexion and shoulder depression and retraction there. Ooh, so you will get a lot of activation, not only in your lats, because you're kind of pulling the humerus down, extending it, but also a lot in the traps too, because of the shoulder depression and retraction there. So a lot of muscles involved in this one, and whew, burn.
If you don't have a power rack available, such as we do, what you could do is put a nice sturdy J hook into a stud in your ceiling if you have a garage or a spare room that could accommodate it, and then you can go ahead and tie it to a tool such as that in order to be able to accomplish these exercises.
Time for some chest, and we're gonna be utilizing the underhand fly for the first exercise, and it's gonna be supersetted with the banded push-ups. With the underhand fly, much like you would do with dumbbells or even cables, you're pretty much just in an underhand position or a supinated position with your hands, getting a pretty wide grip on the band, and what you're doing is flexing in your shoulders and kind of bringing them together, almost making like a pyramid with your hands, getting a good squeeze there. And the chest is gonna be helping pull that shoulder to the center line of the body. And this is gonna be an isolation exercise, really helping to target the upper chest, just like so. Get that good squeeze right there, and then bring it down to that stretch position at the bottom there. And once that is done, we're doing the banded push-ups. There's a few reasons I really like the banded push-ups. One, of course, you add resistance to the push-up. So if you're already used to the push-up and able to do quite a few push-ups, this makes it quite a bit harder. But also, it helps you with the positioning of a proper push-up too, because once you wrap it around your upper back area there, what happens is the band is pushing your arms downward. And what happens is a lot of people make the mistake of flaring their arms too much on a push-up, which puts a lot of strain in the shoulder and puts less emphasis on the chest. So if you flare your shoulders, the band's gonna wanna slip up. So what it's gonna do is force you to bring your shoulders back and down, and also your elbows close to the body. So that way you're a lot more stable, the band is in the correct position, and then you're in a proper push-up position to really help hit that chest, just like so. Oh yeah, getting those chesticles, baby. Onto some shoulders, and we're getting the lightest band. Just kind of wrapping it around something solid. We have a power rack here, and we're gonna be doing shoulder extensions, which is trying to really target, focus, and pinpoint the posterior deltoids there. And what we're gonna be doing is just grabbing each loop end, bowing forward, and then you're going to be extending the shoulders here. And this can kind of mimic a straight arm pull down in a lot of ways because you're working in that shoulder extension. But this one, you're really focusing on almost getting like a hyper extension there, as far back as possible. And if you notice, when you extend the shoulder, you'll immediately see that the posterior fires up there, that kind of like bump there. And that's what we're really trying to engage and target in this exercise. So you do want to keep it a little bit lighter, because that posterior deltoid is on its own, obviously it isn't as strong as when it's working together with the front and the side delt there. So really just pulling it back, getting that good squeeze, bringing it forward, just like so. And you'll feel a little bit in the tricep and lat, but again, you really want to try to focus and target the posterior deltoid by getting that nice squeeze, a little bit hold in that top position to make sure you're engaging it properly. Ooh, yeah, that felt good. And of course, immediately going on to a compound exercise, but we're gonna be doing a unilateral compound, which is gonna be the single arm shoulder press, anchoring it with one foot, and gonna utilize the same arm to press the band all the way up. So pretty simple. You're just working on the shoulder elevation, the elbow extension, and he's gonna be working more of all delts of, or all heads of the deltoid, as well a little bit in the triceps as a secondary muscle group. But again, with these ones, you'll really feel it burn, because not only have you kind of pre-exhausted the shoulder, especially the rear delt on the shoulder extensions, but now you really have to stabilize that top position there with these bands, because it's gonna really wanna pull you back to the bottom, but it's also gonna feel a little unstable when you're fully extended there. And that's gonna be really good, because that's when your shoulder really has to fire up to control that band and that movement. Ooh, especially if you go a nice slow tempo. Of course with these, you can't go really fast just because of the band doesn't really allow that kind of motion. So it always has to be very slow, controlled, eccentric and concentric movement. Oh yeah, and it works like a charm, baby. Okay, so we got some traps, and then it's gonna be 2 exercises that are gonna help isolate the trapezius. One is gonna be focusing on more of the upper trapezius, and the other is gonna be focusing on more of the mid and lower trapezius. The traps are a pretty big muscle. Obviously the ones you see are the upper, but of course they run down the middle of your back too, and you wanna make sure you build them symmetrically. So the first one's gonna be shrugs, which very simple movement. You're just stepping on the band, grabbing the 2 loops, and most people have performed this exercise. You're just shrugging your shoulders up as high as you can, getting a good squeeze, and the good thing is you can really see them working. You just stand in front of a mirror and you see those suckers popping. And that's the whole goal. Get a really good squeeze, bring it down and back up. Pretty short movement, but with something like the bands, you really feel the engagement for sure. And we're gonna be supersetting it with some depressions. Now, 2 movements of the traps, and movements have more than these 2 movements, but the ones we're focusing on is elevation and depression. Elevation we just did with the shrugs. Now we're gonna be doing depressions, and this one is kind of like the beginning movement of a pull-up or a pull-down. It's pretty much depressing your shoulders down, and the mid and lower traps are gonna help pull those shoulder blades, rotate them, and get that engagement in the shoulders there. So you're just gonna be sitting down, and you're gonna be pulling those shoulders down. And you can tell it's another short movement. This one might take a little while to get the hang of. Because it's such a short movement, it might get some taking used to get the proper feeling of it. Make sure you're engaging the right muscles. So start a little bit lighter than this so that we can get a pretty good range of motion. If you go too heavy, you're not really gonna be able to get that nice depression in there. So yeah, there you go. 2 movements, elevation, depression, and boom, traps are done, baby.
We're finishing up this workout off with side bends. It's gonna be 4 sets, 25 reps each side.
And there we go. That is the end of stage 1.5 because day 3 of 1.5 is actually the same as day 1 of 1.5. So we're gonna be moving on to stage 2.5.
Oh yeah. We'll see you next time for another day of the advanced mobility plan. So we will see you for stage 2.5 of the mobility band plan. Yeah.